Hello, I don't fight demons, I help them move on. Meet Bob Falconer, mid-70s, soft-spoken, a man who calls himself basically a man of joy. His specialty? Entities. Not to battle them, but to talk with them. In his room, there are no crucifixes, no shouting, no smoke. Just respect, curiosity, and a deceptively simple question. Are you part of me? If the answer is no, he doesn't vilify the person or the presence. He calms the fear he says these beings feed on, restores the client's agency, and invites the intruder to move on. Is this IFS therapy, spirituality, or something stranger? In today's episode, we step into Bob's porous mind universe, where unattached burdens negotiate, where compassion disarms what aggression can't, and where the goal is simple: help people feel safe in their own skin again. But what exactly are these demons? Where do they fit in the landscape of trauma, psychosis, and healing? And what does it cost to become the kind of hunter who refuses to kill? Let's dive into the story and the method of Bob Falconer, the demon hunter. I am Benjamin, and welcome to the Florin Beniamin Show. Chapter 1: The Man Behind the Job. Welcome back. Bob Falconer doesn't look like someone who hunts demons. He looks like what he is actually: a soft-spoken therapist in his mid-70s who waters his plants, listens closely, and says things like, "I'm basically a man of joy," grateful for loving relationships and meaningful work. That serenity is hard-won. Bob grew up inside of those families. People prefer not to imagine. Sadistic, sexual, and physical abuse. Two addicted parents, a brother who later died by suicide, and a father who was murdered when Bob was 21. By the odds, he should have ended up dead, incarcerated, or lost. Instead, he became a clinician who specializes in the most frightening corners of the psyche, and insists compassion is the strongest tool we've got. He tells the two early turning points. First, as a child, he learned to numb nearly any pain, except suffocation. During repeated suffocation, he'd met a merciful female presence, the only compassion he knew back then. He resented being sent back, then lost contact with that presence for years. But the taste of mercy kept the pilot light on. Later in his high school, he almost beat up a kid who'd provoked him. Something in him softened. He set the boy down and never hit anyone in anger since. Small moments, huge course corrections. A girlfriend's steady kindness cracked open the concrete shell forming around his heart. Psychedelics' approach as a search for spirit derailed a fast slide into alcoholism. He kept himself alive with stubbornness. If I'm really going to kill myself, I should do this first. And a long list of firsts that slowly turned into a life. Construction by day, study and therapy by night. Professionally, Bob became a connoisseur of methods that treat the mind: Ericksonian hypnotherapy, ego state therapy, Gestalt at Esalen, where he returned well over 100 times, voice dialogue, psychosynthesis, and finally internal family systems, or IFS, the model he now teaches around the world. He loves IFS because it's both potent and respectful. You don't amputate bad parts. You meet them, befriend them, and help them cooperate under the leadership of a calm, curious self. The goal is to turn an internal civil war into an orchestra. The entity work found him. During an IFS training small group consult, a supervisee described a vicious inner voice. In IFS, even suicidal parts have protective intent. This one didn't. When the client looked inside, it appeared like a bloodshot eyeball with legs, announced it was not a part of her, and threatened to destroy them both. Bob used simple steps to escort it out. He left the room shaking, body temperature dropping, emotions surging, and decided to pretend it never happened. Then an email arrived from the client, mid-flight. As a young woman, she tried to tell hospitals about the non-human. She got ECT and heavy drugs instead. "You're the first human being to ever believe me." Her life blossomed after that session. Bob couldn't unsee it. He began taking the referrals other therapists didn't want. That path led to his most controversial claims and his careful method. He treats these presences as persons, not things, because the work goes better when you do. He asks a deceptively simple question: "Are you part of me?" And notes that while such beings lie about almost everything, they don't seem able to lie about that one. He does not attack, he removes their fuel. "They only have power when you're scared of them," he says. So he builds a bond with the client's frightened protectors until fear quiets, agency returns, and the presence loses its grip. Then, instead of waging a holy war, he invites it to move on to where it can heal. Bob knows how that sounds in a secular clinic. He's taken plenty of flack. Even Richard Schwartz, founder of IFS, publicly admires Bob's depth of inner work, while admitting discomfort about going so far into spirit depossession territory for fear the academic world will roll its eyes. Bob's answer is practical. However we explain them, recognizing that something foreign to your mind can influence you sometimes brings immediate relief, and that's why he won't shut up about it. None of this means Bob rejects science or ordinary care. He's clear about safety, meds when needed, and the ethics of consent. But after decades of trauma work, he's equally clear about something else. People rarely heal from major trauma without some connection to what he simply calls spirit. Something larger than the pain, larger than the self. He sees IFS self as a quiet backdoor through which that dimension enters therapy. So, who is Bob Falconer? A man who survived the worst people can do to a child, who refused to become what hurt him, and who built a craft from equal parts method and mercy. That's the man behind the job. The rest of this story is how his odd, gentle way, compassion as exorcism, actually works. Chapter 2: Compassion as Exorcism. A client sits across from Bob, hands clenched. "There is something in me that hates me." Bob doesn't flinch. He starts with consent, with pacing, and with one ground rule he gives everyone. No, make nice. Say what's true. Don't say what you think the therapist wants to hear. What follows isn't a fight, it's structure, curiosity, nervous system safety, and a dialogue designed to sort out what's wounded and truly yours from anything that isn't, and then help whatever there's to move on. Before any dialogue, Bob stabilizes the system. Slow breathing, feet on the floor, a safe memory on deck, and an invitation for protective parts to step a little back. Never wait, just simply watch. The reason is simple. Fear is the power source. These presences only have power when you're scared. As fear drops, their grip drops. With more calm on the board, the conversation gets honest. answers are clearer, impulses soften, and it becomes easier to tell the difference between a terrified protector and a foreign hitchhiker. Bob uses two gentle gatekeeping questions. The first is, what's your intention? In IFS view, we're a community of inner parts, and even the ugliest behaviors usually hide protective aims: numbing, distracting, preventing overwhelm. If, after patient, respectful inquiry, there is no pro-self intention anywhere, that's the first clue this may not be a part of the person. The second question is, are you a part of me? Bob has noticed a curious regularity. These things may dodge or posture, but pressed kindly on that one question, they don't seem able to lie. Between those two answers, the whole field sorts itself: wounded but mine versus not mine. From there, the stance is relational, not adversarial. Bob speaks to whatever's present as a someone, not a something. We're not here to judge or punish you. We want to understand you and help. Are you suffering? What do you need? In practice, this tone works far better than a holy war. Many dark energies turn out to be clinging, fearful, and starving, and they release when met with steadiness and respect. One client learned to interrupt a recurring episode with the mantra, "I have nothing here for you but love." As Bob told her later, some of these presences seemed allergic to love. Language follows the client's frame. In Pakistan, people speak of a jinn. In Christian setting, demons. In IFS circles, creatures or unattached burdens. The method doesn't change. Soothe fear, clarify what it is, then either integrate it or escort it out. There are two different endings. If this is a part, the job is to befriend it, help it unburden, and integrate it. Even a suicidal impulse often turns out to be a last-ditch protector. If pain gets unbearable, I can end it. Parts like that are precious. You don't amputate them. If it's not a part, you help it detach and move on. Without hatred, without theatrics. A few guardrails keep the work safe. Some situations call for medical or psychiatric coordination first. Active psychosis, unstable health, acute suicidal crisis. Consent is ongoing. Any protective part can slow or pause the process. Expect integration effects. Changes in sleep, vivid dreams, surprise waves of feeling, and normalize them. Keep the nervous system resourced with simple practices: gentle breathwork, walks, time with safe people, good food, and rest. This is compassion as exorcism, a repeatable process that privileges safety, clarity, and respect over drama. As Bob likes to remind skeptics and believers alike, if it works, it's real enough for the human being you're helping today. Chapter 3: Encounter and Emergence. Two ways home from extreme states. If fighting demons, or convincing demons to leave, or running lifetime protection rituals isn't your idea of fun, there is another route. If, like me, the spiritual bureaucracy, rules, laws, star charts, gene keys, levels, feels mostly mind-made, and you cannot relate, there is a different model that still helps you make sense of the extreme states. Bob Falconer says some of what people feel can come from others, outside players, that seem smart, can latch and scare you, and sometimes even help. Paris Williams looks inside the same stones and sees an organism, your organism, mounting a last-ditch, deep-wise attempt to survive and grow. Both accounts are humane, both are coherent, and both can sit side by side without cancelling each other out. Paris' picture starts elsewhere. He asks you to drop the assumption that breakdown equals broken brain. He writes that the mainstream vision of psychosis currently held in the West is somehow seriously missing the mark, and after surveying research and first-person recoveries, concludes that long-term psychosis is not the result of a diseased brain, after all, but a desperate survival strategy brought on intentionally by one's very own being. In this view, the psyche is not a porous so much as purposeful. Your deepest organismic intelligence is trying to keep you alive when life as lived becomes impossible. Once you allow that framing, a lot of frightening anomalies become meaningful. Voices, visions, massive swings of euphoria and terror, Paris treats them as signals from a system trying to reorganize itself. Recovery, then, is not about getting back to normal, but finding a new living balance. He is explicit about this. The goal is a homeodynamic balance, in which the distress is less than before, even if the anomaly never fully disappears. Full recovery is real, surprisingly common, and often transformational, not just a return to baseline. Again and again, his participants describe more flexibility, more depth, and more connection after the storm passed. Bob and Paris are looking at many of the same phenomena with very different lenses. Bob keeps your attention on relationship and stands in the moment. When an experience feels alien, engage it as such with courage and compassion. Reduce fear, don't bully your inner world. Paris keep your attention on meaning and movement. When an experience overwhelms, assume your being is attempting to heal. Prioritize conditions that support integration, hope, meaning, and connecting with one's aliveness, and allow a new equilibrium to form. You can hear the assumption about the psyche on both sides. For Bob, the mind is relational, permeable, and crowded with intelligences. Treat whatever shows up as a someone, and your dignity grows. So does your safety. For Paris, the mind is self-organizing, inherently intelligent, and capable of profound repatterning under pressure. Psychosis is not the enemy, it is the process. The task is to support that process into completion, instead of interrupting it with fear, force, or premature closure. If you listen long enough, you'll notice one more divergence that's useful for orientation. Paris' picture mirrors Buddhist aims more closely. He invites you right up to the edge, where your usual cognitive scaffolding can't hold, towards a raw, unconditioned experience, and the shock of groundlessness that accompanies it. His language about a deeper integration, an expanded view of tolerance, the interplay of duality and unity, and the way people often emerge with more compassion and less reactivity, this rhymes with the Buddhist path of seeing through the constructed self and relaxing in the wider field of awareness. He's not only Buddhist, he weaves existentialists like Yalom and May, ranks life fear, death fear, and process thinkers like Perry and Mindel into the same tapestry. The scaffolding loosens, awareness widens. The storm strips your certainty. Wisdom is what can survive that stripping. The broad picture is simple. Bob and Paris are looking at the same mountains from different sides. One lens highlights encounter with others, with fear, with courage, with compassion, and gives you handholds to steady yourself right now. The other lens highlights emergence, of meaning, of new balance, of a wider self, and gives you a horizon to walk toward. Neither cancels the other. They are different ways of watching reality through the camera. Change the angle, change the story, keep the person at the center. What matters finally is whether the frame you choose helps you suffer less, love more, and become more deeply human, or as Paris puts it, not mistaking the map for the territory. Here's the plain truth before we land. Some people never fully recover from extreme states. Not for the lack of courage, therapy, meds, meditation, or goodwill. Sometimes the storm rewrites the coastline. Dignity doesn't wait for a symptom-free life. Contribution doesn't either. If that's you, my love and support is with you, and with everyone who shows up for life while carrying chaos inside. Hope still matters. Not the fairy tale kind, the measurable kind. Less terror, more choice. Keep it practical. Feet on the floor, slow breath. Recovery is on a spectrum. Progress counts in inches. A good day might be 1 more hour of sleep, 1 kinder thought, 1 honest text to a safe person. That's not small. That's direction. No matter what you go through, I hope love, calm, and compassion find you. Before you go, if you like this episode, feel free to watch this next episode. Until next time, Beniamin.